funny thing, Father Harry and I, half the time we ended up talking about our fathers, don't we, Father Harry?
Right, Father.
Well, we always do. We always say, my dad said this, or my dad said that. It's funny how that works out. When I was growing up, my dad, he was the disciplinarian in the family, and he was what is euphemistically called firm but fair. I used to think he, as a kid, he was cruel but fair, but whatever. For him, there were rules. That was it. Some things were right, or they were wrong. He didn't have much room for gray areas. And he was not a believer in what's common today, in that there's no bad children, just bad choices. You could be a pain in the neck. And that was it. But he was a loving father. But he did believe, and he tried to make his children understand that actions really counted. That there were good and bad deeds. That who I was and who I was to become would surely be based on my behavior today, now. For my dad, what counted was what we did, not what we did or did not do. I guess my father would disagree with today's epistle, because the epistle states at one point that salvation is not the result of works. But for my dad and for our family, the measure of a person, of a man's strength of character, was based on the degree in which he practiced and possessed such qualities as honesty, loyalty, charity, and self-control. He was a man who believed that your deeds defined you. And yet he firmly believed that while rules and roles and while codes and conducted and counted, he also taught that between us and God, as opposed to us and his Father, things are different. That God somehow sees us inside. And God sees us more completely. And God knows us more intimately than we even know ourselves. My father tried to get me to understand that while he held me accountable for my actions, I should understand that God has a forgive and forget attitude. Remember that saying, forgive and forget? Kind of a funny idea, actually, for his day. My father said that he was, God's concerned about what we're doing now, not where or what happened in our past. He used to say, the old man upstairs had better thing to do than to worry about your foolishness. You know, okay, Dad. Anyway, so God does not so much forgive sins as he forgets them. One time, to get this idea across, I remember I stole a book from the drugstore. I'm glad there's no children here, because they always think the clergy are perfect. But it was in the 4th grade, and I stole this book, and I felt terribly guilty, and I couldn't get it out of my head. The more I tried to keep it to myself, the more I worried about it. And this went on for months, and so finally I figured, being a good Christian boy, I'd go confess to my dad, right? So I did, and he said, well, that was a dumb thing to do. Did you tell, you know, it made me tell Nate, the guy who owned the drugstore. And I still couldn't get it out of my head. So one day he said to me, you, come here. And he took me up to the banking in the side of the property. He took me up to this old cedar tree that was about this big around, and rotten and dying up there. And he wanted to clean up the banking, so he had an idea. He said, you cut this up and take it over to the sand pits and bury it. And at the end of the day, you report in, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do. So I said, oh boy, I should have kept my mouth shut. So I go up there, and I cut all day, and it's a hot summer day, and I'm cutting and I'm digging a perfect grave. I had to dig the 6x6 routine, right? Bury the thing. And about 6 o'clock that night, it was in the summer, I go in and I say, okay, Dad, the tree's buried. And so he says, now come here. He says, what do you see? Where's the tree? I goes, I can't see it. And he said, that's it. The past is like that. It's gone. It's gone. He said, God, me, your mom, all that's gone. We care about who you are now. We care about the mess that's here now or not here. What you did 6 months ago does not matter. Forgiveness involves forgetting. And it worked. And it was a good lesson. And it applies to God's idea and how God forgives us. I sometimes think it's important for us to understand that God does not see us as we see ourselves through our past. We drag our past with us. God is always in the present. God forgives and forgets. God forgives and forgets the past. Sure, we must turn from our errors and embrace what is true and good within ourselves and our souls. But God does not live in our past. He's got better things to worry about than our foolishness. So I'll finish with this. What we do matters, yes. What we do today determines who will we become tomorrow, true. But the past, those things that weigh us down and disturb our hearts, they are gone and they are erased even from the mind of God. That is what it means to be born again, to be renewed. God does not see us as we see ourselves. The grace and the goodness of God and the kindness and the compassion of Christ means that God does not want us to be the agents of our own suffering. Remember that with each passing day, with each moment, and with every prayer, our lives are renewed. They are renewed daily. And they are renewed through the life and through the love of a God who is Father to us all. Amen.